Okay, so this lesson is about repeating decimals and fractions. The lesson objective for this lesson is that by the end of this lesson, I can convert repeating decimals to fractions. Really quickly, I want to do some vocabulary that you should know, but we'll make sure. A repeating decimal is when you have one or more digits that repeat over and over. A terminating, for instance, 0.333, and you denote this by putting a line over the top, okay? That tells me that it's repeating. A terminating decimal is a decimal that just stops. For instance, 8 and 25/100ths. That's a terminating decimal. It stops. It doesn't keep going. Now, we're not going to talk about decimals that are continuous and keep going. We're talking about just repeating decimals and terminating decimals. And terminating decimals stop. That's what I wanted to tell you. Okay? So, before we get started, we've already talked about taking a fraction and converting it into a decimal, and also taking a decimal and converting it into a fraction. What we haven't talked about is what do you do with those repeating decimals? And it was a struggle when we were talking about rational numbers, because in your mind, if it keeps repeating, it doesn't turn into a fraction. But that's not true, okay? Before we get started on turning repeating decimals into fractions, I want you to do a really quick review. You can use your calculator or you can do long division, but go ahead and pause this video, and I want you to turn these fractions into decimals and show me what it looks like if they're repeating. So go ahead and do that right now, pause, then come back and check and see how you did. Okay, so hopefully I don't have to sing the song to you anymore, but 4/15 means 4 divided by 15. And when you do that, you get 26/100ths with the 6 repeating. Don't forget, you only draw the line, the repeating line, over the digit that repeats or digits that repeat. The 2 only happens once, and the 6 is what repeats, so that's where we draw our line. So, 8 divided by 9 is 8/10 repeating. I know probably in the past, like in elementary school, they said you had to write 2 or 3 of the 8s and then put the line over it, but for our purposes, that's not necessary. Just one of those digits with the line over the top. And the very last one, 11 divided by 16, is 6,875 10,000ths, and it is a terminating decimal. So how do I turn a repeating decimal into a fraction? Well, let me tell you first that there's a really complicated formula that you use for repeating decimals, and it takes a while and it's a little bit confusing. So for our purposes, we're going to teach you how to turn a repeating decimal into a fraction with a minimum of steps, okay? We're going to kind of give you a trick instead of teaching you that whole long formula that might be confusing. You're going to use the formula later on in Algebra 1 and Algebra 2, but for now, you don't need it. You just need a way to turn a repeating decimal into a fraction. So here's our steps. We're going to isolate the repeating digit, we're going to say the place value and then subtract 1, we're going to write the fraction form, and we're going to reduce if necessary. Let me show you what I mean. So the first step says isolate the repeating digits. The repeating digit is 3, so I'm going to isolate it by itself. Then, step 2 says, say the place value and then subtract 1. So, when I read this out loud, I have 3/10ths repeating. So, tenths is my place value, and now I'm going to subtract 1, which is 9, and I'm going to use that as my denominator. Okay? My next step is to write the fraction, which I already did, which is 3/9. And then my last step is to reduce if necessary. Well, 3/9 can be reduced to 1/3. Now, in order to check this, put this into your calculator. 1 divided by 3 is 3/10 repeating. I want you to make sure you understand that you can check these to make sure that they work. So let's try one more together. This is 43/100ths repeating. So isolate the repeating digits. That's 43. Okay? say the place value and then subtract 1. 43 hundredths. So I'm going to take 100 and subtract 1, which gives me 99. So now I've got my fraction. I'm going to turn it into the fraction. So it's 43 over 99. And my last step is to reduce if necessary. Well, I know that 43 over 99 is as simple as it can be because 43 is prime and 43 doesn't go into 99 evenly. So my fraction for this repeating decimal is 43 99ths, okay, or 43 over 99. So since you wrote those steps down, remember, I want you to write those steps down so that you can go in order. I'm going to say it one more time. Write every step down and you can try them. I want you to look at these last two and I want you to try them by yourself. So pause the video, try the steps that we did, and then come back and see how you did. And yes, I will expect you to have both of these and the other examples on your notes when I look at them. Okay, so let's see how you did. Step 1, isolate the repeating digits. All three of those digits are repeating, 567, okay? Then I need to read it out loud, 567 thousandths. So I take 1,000 and I subtract 1, that's step number 2. Now I'm going to write the fraction, 567 over 1,000. Oops, sorry, look at that. See, Mrs. Hall did it wrong. Even though I followed my steps, over 999. So now I need to reduce. I happen to know that both of those can be reduced by 27, but you'd have to try something smaller first. I know this is a large one, so if you didn't get the reduce part, that's understandable. And when I reduce it, I get 21/37. If you got to this step, 567 over 999, that's good enough for today. Don't worry about that. Was a huge one that you needed to be able to reduce. And I just want to make sure you know how to take the decimal, the repeating decimal, and turn it into a fraction. Let's look at this next one. This one's a little more complicated because it's got that 9 on there. Okay, so my isolate is 45 hundredths. Then it's hundredths, so I take 100 minus 1 and I get 99. Okay? And then I write my fraction. And don't forget, this one's a mixed number. It's 9 with 45 over 99. I look at 45 and 99. I know they can both be divided by 9. So now my fraction, or my mixed number, is 9 and 5/11. We will do much more of this tomorrow. We will go through the steps and make sure you understand what to do. But you need to write down any questions you might have. And make sure that all 4 examples are in your notes.